Pawn to d4. Knight to f6. Pawn to c4. Pawn to e6. Knight to c3. Bishop to b4. Nimzo-Indian defense. Black plans to exchange his bishop for a knight and damage white pawn structure. Queen to c2, the classical variation. King to g8. Pawn to a3, repelling the bishop. Bishop to c3. Queen to c3. Pawn to d5, taking his share of the center. Pawn to e3, opening a window for the f1 bishop but cutting the sight of the c1 bishop. It was more precise to first develop the bishop to g5 before playing e3. Most probably the c1 bishop will develop via fianchetto or wait until the e4 break is possible. Pawn to b6. The c8 bishop can develop via fianchetto to b7 or even to a6 to pin the c4 pawn. Pawn to b4, a double-edged move. White starts a pawn storm, but his king is still in the center. The idea is to quickly start an attack on the queen's side. White's light-squared bishop has not moved but is already pointing to the queen's side. White can develop the other bishop to b2 and start pressuring the c-file by opening the center with c takes d5. Knight to d7, developing the knight and supporting the c5 break. Pawn to d5, move 9 and we have a brand new position. There are no games from here in the Chess Masters database. Knight to d5, taking the pawn back with a tempo on white's queen. Queen to b2, white keeps the queen on the long diagonal. Pawn to c5, a good move, increasing the tension on the center. Knight to f3. Queen to c7. Bishop to d2, a mistake. The dark-squared bishop could develop after opening a window with pawn to e4. It was better to take on c5 and open the diagonal for the queen. Black to play. Pause the video and find the best move. Tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Pawn to c4, a great move. That's the reason why white's previous move was a mistake. Now Cesar the c-pawn is grabbing more space on the queen's side and threatening a fork on c3. At first it looks like the c-pawn is weak because it is defended only by the queen. However, white doesn't have time to stop b5. Queen to c2, moving out of the fork. Pawn to b5, securing the c-pawn. Black already has a slight advantage. However, white can counter-attack with e4, grabbing space with his two central pawns. Knight to g5, threatening checkmate on h7. However, this is a one-move threat and white is actually losing a tempo. Knight to f6. Pawn to e4, grabbing space on the center and repelling the d5 knight. Black to play. Pause the video and find the best move. Tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Pawn to e5, a brilliant move. Sacrificing a knight. The idea is to open the e-file to catch the king in the center and also to create two passed pawns. Pawn to d5. Pawn to d4. Now white can't castle short because no piece can block the check on e8. This is move 16 and black is already winning. King to c1. Pawn to c3. Each pawn push leaves holes behind it. It was more precise to play pawn to a5 and open a line for the rook. King to b1. Pawn to a5. Bishop to c1. White is trying to defend all the holes that surrounds his king. Queen to b6. Bishop to d3, blocking the d-pawn and attacking h7. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to b4, a great move. Bishop to d5, black is winning. Black has 4 dangerous passed pawns for the piece. Pawn to h6, a blunder, was played in the game. Black should ignore white's threats and continue his attack on the queen's side. Knight to f3. Bishop to g4, a dubious move, pinning the knight. Black continues to play on the wrong side of the board. Now his advantage has evaporated. White to play. Pause the video and find the right move. Tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Knight to d4, a brilliant move. The knight is untouchable because it is protected with X-rays by the d1 rook. White sacrifices the exchange but gets the bishop pair. Bishop to d1. Rook to d1. Pawn to b4, finally opening the a-file. However, now black has less pieces to carry out his attack. Nevertheless, it is very hard to defend as white. The 3 pawns can advance supported by the heavy pieces. Queen to b3. White maneuvers to create a blockade. Pawn to a3. Bishop to c2. Pawn to a2. King to a1. Pawn to b4. The 3 pawns are blocked and the position is equal again. However, it's easier to play as black because it feels like all white pieces are tied. Can white survive? Black has 4 minutes on the clock while white a bit more than half an hour. White to play. What to move? If bishop to e3, a great move. This move is hard to find because it allows black to dislodge white's queen from her blocking square. Knight to b3 with equality. The knight is a better blocker than the queen. Knight to f5, a mistake, was played in the game. Planning to push the d-pawn, white wants to sacrifice the f2 pawn for a tempo to activate his pieces. Queen to f2. Pawn to d6. Rook to e8, a mistake, planning to invade through the second rank. However, this move leaves the f7 pawn unprotected. Knight to e7. King to h8. Bishop to h6, a blunder. There are good sacrifices, bad sacrifices, and my sacrifices, says white. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to h6, a blunder. Taking the bishop allows white to start a dangerous attack. And the position gets messy. If knight to g8, a great move. Double attack and at the same time opening a line for the queen to defend f7. Rook to d3, black is winning. Black has removed all threats and is at exchange up. Knight to d7 was played in the game. Black ignores the sacrifice. His idea is to remove the blockade on the b-file. White to play. What to move? If bishop to e3, a brilliant move. The only defense protecting the c5 square. White sacrifices a bishop to distract black's queen gaze from the central c2 bishop and to get a tempo to start his own attack. Queen to b3 with counterattack. Black king is forced to escape to h6. Bishop to c1 was played in the game. The final blunder. Knight to c5, attacking the queen who defends the c2 bishop. White to play. What to move? If queen to b4, a mistake. And the checkmate on b3 is unstoppable. Rook to d3 was played in the game. Knight to b3. Bishop to b3. Queen to b2, finishing the game with style. White resigns. Is impossible to stop the queening of the pawn.